My husband has been murdered. And my sister is here. And though I am feeling anxiety about this, I release it.
So you said you left at 8:45, and you came home, put down your things, kick off your shoes, came over here, but you feel something at your feet, and that's when you see your husband.
Burglary going wrong is quickly falling out of the lead for me. Oh, Mr. Selby.
I think the unconscious contradiction affects everything. It's the shame and guilt that, she feels all the time. It's brings up the decision that she made when she was younger, to help, in her mind, to protect Ethan, which ruined her sister's life. And that decision is something that I think that really is one of those major unconscious contradictions that she can barely live with, which is why she's created this perfect existence and this, fighting for women and fighting for equality and fighting for all these things outwardly. And yet she's experiencing so many of these things that she's fighting at home privately. It's almost too much for her brain. She cannot let this facade come apart. Everything is gone. Everything she's fought for, everything she sacrificed in her mind is for nothing if this stuff comes out, and if people know what's going on at home, and if people knew what happened and knew where she's actually from. So it's really the driving force of why she does everything, why she's a control freak, why she needs everything to be so rigid. Because if everything's not in its place, and the lies are not kept hidden away in a deep, dark trunk locked away in her brain or whatever, then she will fall apart, and her life will fall apart. And now she will have broken her relationship with her sister and everybody else in her family and her life. And it's like literally everything's been for nothing. And she can't have that.
Well, I think shame is a huge part of it, right? I think blame and shame, that so many women carry this sense of, it happened to me, it must be my fault. Mm-hmm. It's only about me. I'm the bad guy. And also she was an addict, and so she had human faults and frailty. I love what Paul Sparks' character says to her about, that was used against you, right? Like, you should have been helped through that, and instead it was used against you. And I don't think she really had thought about it that way. It's a great moment for her when she gets opened up. But I also believe that Nikki knows that you do better when you know better, and she doesn't know what's going on in the house. She thinks, like, that was my experience. I'm not gonna poison Ethan and Chloe with what happened to me. Maybe Adam's a better man with her. I think she really believed that for a long time. Again, another lie. When it's discovered that none of that is true, it's just too much for her. She's like, okay, well, this is the end. I was building a way of being based on something I believe to be true. I now know it's not true. And because of that, I'm gonna do something about it. Mm-hmm. And once, and I think she goes to protect Chloe and Ethan. That is her goal. And Adam, the villain, of the piece, really gets in the way. And, that's the Greek tragedy of it, right?
Yeah.
We gotta take out he becomes the common enemy, mm-hmm. not just my enemy. And I think that really helps them come together.
Right, they both need something to fight for.
Yeah. I mean, we made a limited series. I felt like we closed a lot of the chapters.
Yeah.
That's like page 1 of a new story that I think could go anywhere. Maybe it doesn't even involve us.
Maybe not.
Maybe that's like the Gentry group. Ask Gloria Rubin. She's going to be involved. We'll see where I love, look, every episode ends with a cliffhanger. And I felt like the showrunners felt that the finale also needed one because it's fun for the audience, and ultimately that this show should entertain. And that little twist, I think it like this, it gets everybody talking and asking questions. It's a great cliffhanger.
I felt really satisfied with the way that this show ended because we really got to share what happened. And you do go away as an audience member feeling, I think, satiated by the information that you're told. And to your point, these women are finally on the same page. And not only on the same page, but are thick as thieves now. And now, like, all right, I have your back forever. You have my back forever. And that's the arc that was most important for us to really show, is like two people at odds, two women at odds, and how through the hardest of circumstances, they found a way through. And what we didn't want to make was a show just about women not supporting each other and like being nasty to each other. Like the arc was important to get all the way there to the end. So, I mean, I feel so good about where we left it. And to Elizabeth's point, the entertainment aspect, the entertainment value, it just offers the showrunners like endless opportunities, you know, and that's kind of the dream. You can go anywhere with these characters or with this show if it's lucky enough to ever get a second season. But yeah, it is a limited. So we closed the book. We closed the last page on Alifair's book, and
so yeah, it was a whodunit. You know who done it.
Absolutely. I think that for us, we felt like this is really a story about these sisters, you know, and when you get to know the dynamic between Chloe and Jake and what was happening between the two of them, there's these great scenes where he says, I used to picture what it would be like for Adam to be gone, you know, and I would imagine, and Chloe says, and what about now? And he says, I can't even imagine tomorrow now, you know, and part of what's being communicated there is that now that there is the chance for them to be together, he doesn't really want it. And there's a little bit of backstory there of the kind of person that he is. And it's sort of in that moment, I think that for us, the realization of whatever potential there was maybe for them to be together, we don't know what that's like, because really Chloe's with her sister now, you know, that's her primary relationship. And there's so much drama and intrigue at play around Adam as a figure in terms of what he was doing with Gentry Group, in terms of what he was doing with Bill Braddock, and Jake is wrapped up in all of that in terms of this FBI investigation. And so the truth is, even though this is a story that starts about this family, it really has expanded out to what is a multinational global company that has huge implications. And so Jake is not only involved with these sisters, he's involved with that much larger and obviously much more powerful organization. And so for us, it felt like it's not only that this family, the tension and destruction that has occurred of this family, it's the ripple effect of the tension and destruction that has occurred when people are making these kinds of choices and engaging in this kind of violence. And so it felt inauthentic and insincere to us to say that, oh, the violence stops with the sisters. It's just Nikki who's doing it. It's like, no, this is violence that's being perpetrated on a much larger and much wider scale. And so we wanted to be true to those storylines and kind of what happens around these sisters.
The ambiguity of how did it happen?
Yeah.
By his own hand, by someone else's hand? How dangerous a world are they in now?
Yep.
And that, to me, just in that one visual, tells a whole lot of story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Regina, with that decision, is that just a very gripping end for this Gentry Group storyline with Jake's death, or is that you potentially opening the door for a possible second season? It seems like you might have an idea in mind for what could happen next should you continue.
I think it satisfies the first season, to me, beautifully. Like, all these things are tied up in a way, if you want to think that way. But there's always, because life is continuous, there's always oh, wow, we could actually do something with that. But I think that for this particular story, it felt like a period to us.
Yes, and I think we got to know these characters so well, so we felt like we imagine their ongoingness because that's just how we think of them as real people, you know? And I think it was...
We have no friends.
Because really, what else are we gonna do? But I think that's exactly right. That the part of that ongoingness is mystery, and so the answer of what happened to Jake, we don't have it, because in life sometimes you don't have everything. But so there is a very its intrigue is satisfying in its own way and feels like a conclusion, and yet speaks to the reality of these people's lives, which is this isn't the end.
Or is it about her? What has Catherine been involved with? How deep in the weeds is she that we don't fully realize? I think it's a combination, and it's one of those ... to be revealed. But something is lost for Catherine there, and Catherine doesn't take losses very well. This was not in her plan, but with all things with Catherine, that motherfucker includes, and it also includes, oh, this is interesting. I think there's something kind of intriguing about this turn of events, that the predator in her just loves the prey suddenly has changed direction. And now what? The game is on. So that's Catherine.
Yeah, and she is, there's a couple moments in the season where she's upset by Chloe withholding information from her because she feels it's like, do you not trust me with this? Why don't you trust me with this? How does Catherine feel about Chloe by the season's end? How has that dynamic evolved?
Chloe has the ability to get on Catherine's skin in a way that Catherine doesn't even like, that Catherine isn't even expecting at times. And that betrayal, I think it surprises Catherine how deeply it does affect her. Her moments of vulnerability are as surprising to her as I hope they will be to the audience. At least that's what I planned. And so the Chloe by the end is both surprising, challenging. She's proud of her. She's now on guard a bit with her. She didn't expect Chloe to rise to this occasion and be as capable as she has been, and quite frankly, be as formidable as she has been. On some level, Catherine's going to take some credit for all of that, because by the end, she's actually truly becoming a bit of a mini me. And as any mother, Catherine is a little bit proud of her offspring.
Well, I think he's kind of always trying to do the right thing, and it's just about his ability to control himself and his impulses. The moments of violence, of control that we see in the flashbacks. It's not necessarily a sort of like a premeditated, sense of sort of cruelty. There's this sense that he sort of he loses control, and this is obviously not to forgive that, but he's not a psychopath. He does have a sense of right and wrong, and he can, when he tries to expose the firm, and this is him trying to do the right thing, and maybe in some ways he's deluding himself to think that righting that wrong could make up for the mistakes he's made in the past. But I found Adam really. There's times where I've played a number of villains, and there's some times where I feel like I have to just sort of close my eyes and let go of my judgment for the character, and it can be very difficult. And with Adam, I didn't find it that difficult because I feel like there's a lot of humanity there, despite his his bad actions.
Yeah, I think this show has a lot to say about generational trauma and how, like, not addressing those within yourself can lead to you repeating history. So there's a lot of dark depth to Adam there for sure.
Yeah, and I think with Adam too, like a lot of the violence comes from this desire for control and this desire to avoid his past. I mean, it's just going from Nikki to Chloe, and he thinks, okay, now I'm going to do this right this time, without doing the work to see how he got in that position to begin with.
It's a pleasure working with Gloria, and it's just been easy from day one. It's just easy, professional, grounded, and I think by both being people of color in this traditional world that gets set up in the Northeast of the United States, they have a similar backstory. They've suffered similar things. They understand where they're coming from. They have a similar background of relatedness, and a kind of easy dynamic. What she mentions about being an adult, I think, is a good contrast to maybe why, a man can be split into two different directions, and there might be an allure to being with a strong female who acts more like an adult and who understands where she's coming from and what she's been through, and has a more secure promise for the future. So I think that interplay might create some tension.
Also, it's very nuanced. The idea that, when they reference this thing about how I thought you learned your lesson type of thing, it's not specific about what's happened between the two of them. It's suggested, no question about it, but it's nuanced. And so that leaves a lot of room as well for interpretation, for the imagination. There's certainly a playfulness. Needless to say, there is a relationship, because again, from the beginning, right from the get-go, there's a professional relationship, and well, what else happened is one of a multitude of questions that is asked throughout this whole series, which makes it great.
I mean, I think everything is Ethan's just a raw nerve, and especially at that point in his story, it's before he's had this chance to kind of address all these things that have happened in his life and fuel his way through them. And just fresh in his mind is this, like, seeing this horrible moment between his parents and just sort of living this life that he feels very out of place, and he doesn't know, he feels uncomfortable with his place in the hierarchy of the world. And all of these things are running through his head, but the main thing is just his adoration and his love for his mom and his need to protect her. And the moment that he comes to the realization that he can't do anything to help him because that would be hurting his mom. And so it's sort of he chooses, in a weird way, he chooses love by letting something pretty terrible happen. But it was a very fun scene to shoot. Regina and Olivia were both there, just totally walking me through it and helping me kind of understand that emotional state as it stood in the moment.
We talked about that with our wonderful creators, and I don't think he believes in it, but I think he's onto something much bigger in a sense. Yeah. So there is definitely something going on with Bill, but it's also opening up to this massive conspiracy and case. So I think he's kind of just bulling ahead and kind of not caring what the destruction can be, and then also figuring out, okay, we'll get to that as well. But I don't know if he necessarily thinks it's like, oh, Bill is the one who did it, but he knows there's something big going on here. So he's like pulling the strings on that.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a limited series, but this ending and with the many twists that it has feels like that it's potentially setting up a possible second season, or it's just a very gripping ending. But where do these two stand with each other at the very end, especially given that Guidry is suspended and Bowen has had this victory?
Guidry's at a low point, suspended, and I mean, I think that her job is the thing that keeps her sort of healthy in a way and sane. And I think she knows exactly who the murderer is, and she's sure of it, and then is kicked off the force. And I don't know what she's going to do with her life, what she will spiral into. I think she's upset. She thinks this guy's a dumbass for what he's doing. You know what I mean? She's mad. She's mad, and yeah, it leaves it in just like life. It's not really tied up in a bow at the end. It's kind of messy.